I am such admiration for entrepreneurs because they have a dream and they create that dream from nothing and then they go back themselves. So the way you back yourself in that situation is no different to when you're experiencing burnout, or in my case, living through 2 diagnoses of cancer. No different. Adversity is adversity. It's about acknowledging that adversity. You acknowledge it, you name it, you feel the feels, you allow, in my case, control the controllables.
Welcome to the Burnout Detox Kit Podcast. I'm your host, Sophie Theen. I'm an award-winning people and culture executive, keynote speaker, coach, and the founder of the Burnout Detox Project. For more than a decade, I help companies build high-performing teams and cultures across fast-growing businesses. But behind the scenes, I was burning out over and over again. So I saw the side of success nobody talks about openly. So each week, I bring you raw conversations, expert insights that will help you navigate your toxic workplace and finally understand what success should never demand from you. So if you press play today, it means some part of you is ready for that to change. Welcome, and let's get into today's episode. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am joined by Bron Watson. So, Bron, you've got an eclectic professional background. There's nursing, teaching, 14 years as a business owner as well. And after burning out multiple times, you've realized that burnout isn't just a workplace phenomenon anymore, but it's something that can seep into every relationship and facet of your life. I also love that you talk about the Clifton strengths, which we will obviously go into a little bit deeper to understand how people think. So I'm really excited to dive into how you distinguish workplace burnout from personal burnout and why stepping into self-employment isn't always the escape thing we need.
So first of all, I think people have this belief that we have like work Bron and then the home Bron. But guys, we're all one person. I call it people burnout because one definitely will impact the other. So I feel that, especially in corporate, that there's an expectation put on you that is not in your PD, and that the expectation is that you'll just do the work and just keep doing the work. And if we are, especially for someone like me, because I'm a fix-it kind of gal, is that you're just expected to perform. And when you burn out, you're so used to living on the energy and from 2 years in advance. Like I was so in the red when it came to self-care. It gets to the point where, in my case, I had a diagnosis of cancer to wake me up. You do not want something that dramatic. But adversity comes if we don't just pause enough. And that's how we miss until it then gets to the point where you start to get sick and things start to fail.
Yeah. I mean, I used to personally think that burnout was only just about the office, exactly like you. You either learn it from the people who've gone through it, but most of the time, the people who talk to you about burnout are probably your colleagues as well. It's a workplace problem. Right? We talk about either it's long hours, toxic bosses. I mean, we can talk about toxic bosses all day, all year.
Yes.
Until I realized, yeah, exactly. Until I realized those very same fires that were burning in my relationships, my family, my friendships as well. As you said, it starts to seep into your personal life without you realizing it. So, Bron, clearly, you've gone through quite a bit of journey for recovery. We're talking about evolving and continue to be growing. How did that shift your recovery? And what kind of signs should, say, listeners who are in the thick of it right now look for to recognize the difference between a personal burnout and a workplace burnout?
Whatever causes it, the root cause, it's all going to come back to how we respond or we react. And when you're worn down, how can you possibly be the best version of yourself at home? I mean, I had 5 children. So here I am working my butt off and then progressively having more and more children throughout that. I'll give you an example. Like I was second chemotherapy post breast cancer treatment, right? I hop on a Facebook Live 4 hours after I leave the Cancer Institute hospital. Why? Because I believed for myself I wanted to deliver what I said I was going to deliver. I wore it like a badge of honor, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for everyone else. And it wasn't until I caught a glimpse of myself, Sophie, I literally caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror and I went, I wonder who that is. And then, oh my God, it's me. So sick. God. And in that moment, I went, Bron, you keep this up, you are in serious trouble. And in my case, in that situation, I shut that mastermind down overnight with no plan B. What that moment was is that I was giving all of my energy. And when you are in those corporate situations and you're pushed beyond your capacity, it's going to borrow for the future. But it'll get to the point where you're going to feel it. Guarantee you, your gut has been telling you, it's been
Yeah.
telling you very quietly. I had that message for years. It really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. It's incredible sometimes we underestimate the capability actually to be, we talk about self-awareness quite a bit, especially when it comes to the topic of burnout. But at the same time, I don't think we talk enough about taking a pause. You tend to think that you want to take a really long break or rest because it's part of your recovery journey. But just taking stock of where you are is something we don't do automatically.
And that is 50% of the game, right? I used to dream, oh my God, I just want a year off. I didn't do anything about it, but that was my wish. I need time to repair, but I didn't stop. Back then I I used to think self-care was a luxury. So it's about having the vulnerability and the honesty with yourself, because you're going to give everything to an employer and come home and whoever's in your house, that's they're going to get the dregs. We know
Yeah.
that doesn't sound right, but that's the reality. So therefore, what is something in that equation? What is one thing you could look at? Entrepreneurs, we want to be our own bosses. We want it all now. But the immense work that comes when you are as good as your last invoice in terms of financial security. I have such admiration for entrepreneurs because they have a dream and they create that dream from nothing. And then they go back themselves. So the way you back yourself in that situation is no different to when you're experiencing burnout, or in my case, living through 2 diagnoses of cancer. No different. Adversity is adversity. It's about acknowledging that adversity. You acknowledge it, you name it, you feel the feels, you allow, in my case, control the controllables. Just do the one thing. Put one thing away off the kitchen bench. Not rearrange the whole Tupperware cupboard, but just put one thing away and then do the next thing.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's definitely hard.
It sounds so simple, it's ridiculous.
It sounds so simple
but that's
because
the
you're
first
talking about
step when it comes to healing in burnout.
I hear you. So, Bron, you also talk about people burnout, right? You're talking about being
Yes.
burnt out by the energy it takes to maintain relationships rather than tasks. You look at them from a relationship compass perspective rather than the task.
do.
Now, I know for a fact that being in HR for this many years,
I
it
don't know how you do it.
drains my energy. I know, right? I ask myself that question. I absolutely still feel very passionate about HR, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
at the
it's
same
very
time,
important, but I don't know how you do it.
and I know that feeling very well, that when I come home from work, or even, I slam my laptop, shut down at the end of the day, and I go, I'm exhausted because all I've had were meetings about other people's problems.
Yes.
So I personally feel like that's a very good way of describing my type of burnout when it comes to the workplace. Forget the
Yeah.
toxic bosses, forget
No,
the
that's
narcissistic
right.
bosses, right?
Forget all of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So in your definition, what does people burnout look like for you?
Exactly that. You've given your all day, and especially being online, you close the laptop and you go, oh my God, that was a hell of a day. All right. So what's left? Not a lot of energy. So it's people burnout, right? Because you're then going to have to go and might be able to visit your family or deal with the children or deal with a partner, and then you've still got to show up for everyone else. So how do you do that? So my thing around people burnout, start pulling back what's yours, give back what's not yours. Especially when it comes to with HR, for example, you have just been given so much negative or not even negative, but complicated human relationships and the energy required to deal with that, you want to consciously give it back. Give it back to all of the people. And this is going to sound kind of weird, but I've got to get me through dealing with two diagnoses of cancer and dealing with what that looks like from an uncertainty perspective. My dear friend Kerry Chinner is an energy healer. I don't even know what she calls herself. So she literally says to me, take a stone, this is crystal, but take something And
Yeah.
you take that emotion and you say it out loud and you give it back. You
It's like a
literally
little
give it back.
totem, isn't it?
That's the unraveling. So with people burnout, give it back. That is not yours. Just do whatever. Go outside and get energy and from the grass, but give it back. Because what happens is we absorb and, believe what you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a strength coach, taught many, many teams and how to understand the team dynamics that they are in. As you said, there are many things that are controllable in your personal relationships and your personal environment. But when it comes to the workplace, you're going to have to deal with the cards that you were dealt. Right? Simple as that. So being
Yes.
able to understand upfront the dynamics that are around in your team, including the relationship with your boss, gives you one step ahead in navigating. You may, at the end of the day, choose that you've got enough self-awareness and go, look, I've got the freedom to actually not deal with this at all because it doesn't fit me. And I know long-term, this is not going to be beneficial. I'm taking myself out of the equation. And this is where I come at when people talk about burnout in the workplace and they feel like they're quite stuck and not have a solution to get themselves out of the situation, I have a feeling it's probably because one, they don't have the tools to just have the courage, listen to themselves, listen to their body, take stock, as you said. Or on the other hand, they don't even know the environment they're in. It's just something that feels really bad and it takes a toll on them on a day-to-day basis, but they can't name it.
No. And that's where strengths, like I have a team of 4, all right? Pre this last diagnosis, I looked at scaling and it was going to be scaling from like 4 to 30 to grow in what we were doing. I run a marketing agency. So I did a lot of work around the strengths and I realized that there were a few people in my team and this workflow manager, oh my God, how do you teach initiative? You can't. And I went, the whole role is based on an initiative. And she said, well, Bron, the only way to get around that, because she's always looking at the strengths and my top strengths are my team's lowest strengths. And so she said to me, Bron, this person is a box ticker, meaning that they need a process to follow. And if there is not a box to tick below the one they've just done, they will stall. I am anything but a box ticket. I'm the bottleneck because I don't do well with boxes, right? So I had to build, it took me a month, but I had to build a whole process around boxes to ensure that that person was able to do the job at her best ability, because it was nothing to do with ability. It was nothing to do with not doing her job, which I feel is what happens, is that people are misunderstood simply because they're in a role that is not in line to who they literally are and what are their strengths. And that fixed that problem. So energetically, you can imagine the toll it took on me because I was constantly putting out fires. And that's where I think burnout comes from, because this person's trying so hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And they probably
And
feel
I'm
like they
going,
keep letting you down.
yeah, I felt, because in my world, I'm going, oh my God, now I've got to fix it again. My job is to build the business and do the things, not tick damn boxes. So can you see where burnout may have come for both of us? Because of my
Because you've
lesson,
learned it.
I learned the hard
Exactly.
way with initiative.
Yeah, yeah. And ever so often, when I get called in to actually do a fixing up, a fixing up
Yeah.
project, most of the time it's because it's already too late. The most common reasons that I get asked to do a strength coaching session with a company, it's usually the 4 things. Too much turnover in the leadership team.
Yes.
Too much burnout because we care about well-being. So let's fix something that we don't really understand.
Yep.
3, there is a stall in performance. Clearly, we've hired really smart people and very adequate people. How come they're not performing anymore?
Why they're not doing what they're meant to do.
Exactly. And finally, 4, whether I like it or not, it's also a checkbox exercise for them because they go, well, these are the multitude of all the services that are out there that are predominantly going to fix our problem. Let me just pass it on to someone else.
And the reason why I'm laughing is because, whether you are an employee or whether you're in leadership or whether you're looking to grow your own business, you are going to need to know all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I remember when I first started my business, I had multiple friends who were business owners and entrepreneurs. And I'd look around and go, well, it can't be that hard. No.
Clearly not the same.
Nope, it is not that the same. But if you do have those feelings and you want to go out on your own, set yourself up based on your compass is capacity, which means that you're going to look after yourself. We are the people. We're human beings. And the quicker we realize that we're not human doings, the better off you are, which means that you then have that energy. And what does energy bring? Energy brings empowerment. Energy brings confidence.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's so much saying about, creating micro habits for yourself. Having momentum will lead to motivation. You're absolutely right. You can't just spring out of bed one morning and go, I'm ready to take on the world. And then the next day you expect yourself to feel exactly the same. That's just not how your body works, right?
Yeah.
So I
No,
want to talk
it's
about
not. And
this.
that's where energy comes in and actually listening to your body.
I want to talk about the thing that you spoke earlier. There's this widespread belief that quitting your job, we talked about this before, and becoming your own boss is automatically going to cure burnout or
We
whatever
did.
shitty feeling that you're feeling in at the workplace. You and I have clearly both learned the hard way that that's not true. I myself
Mm-hmm.
have burnt out as a
Mm-hmm.
consultant, and you've burnt out running your own business. Can we just
Yep.
take a moment here to unpack why self employment can actually create a different kind of burnout?
Look, I feel because you're starting from nothing. You've come across this idea and you think, are you wanting to start a business because you want to escape your current role? Or are you doing it because you've got this burning desire to go and do something? And so when it came to building a business, I hate to say it, people, you got to do it yourself. For example, my business model wasn't the one that I should have built for me. And I had warnings. I built it for 7 years, guys, just so you know. I knew it but I wouldn't listen because I was doing so well and I was successful at what I was doing. And so that's the very first thing that I would say to someone is be first of all, a little bit of reflection. That's where the pause comes in. Allow a bit of pause and reflect on, are you wanting to do this to escape something or are you doing it because you want to create? And it doesn't matter either way. All right. But if you're wanting to escape, guess what? The challenges you're facing in the workplace, you will face in the business space because you will find that you are going to be dealing with the same sort of person. But the difference is you got a whole heap more ego. And
Fair.
ego
Yeah.
in business is whatever it is, right? I don't judge anybody else. But what it does is it influences how we communicate and how we grow. I'm not putting you off. Go for it. We love entrepreneurs. We love people who can create magic. It is literally magic when you create something from nothing. And
Yeah,
yes,
of
it's
course.
amazing, but there's a whole heap of work, which is doable.
If you know where you're coming from and you know what your starting point is basically what you're saying, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
there's the situation where, often people emphasize that recovery isn't about quitting, exactly like what we're talking about here.
No.
It's about making different choices, setting boundaries so that number one, others don't trample over you because
Yep.
boundaryless is not a great situation to be in. And at the same time, you yourself having the ability to believe in what you can actually set out to do becomes the first point. So where are we going to get, anybody who's inspired or want to be an entrepreneur out there that's just kind of like, I get what you mean around find your purpose and find your reason why you want to step out of the corporate world and your work. Go for it, do some reflection, do some self-awareness, do the exercise so that you know where you're coming from, have a really good solid, ground to come up from. But at the same time, where do we learn all the toolkits? I mean, I have learned it through the hard way, but I'm saying out loud, like people who aspire to want to be an entrepreneur, where do they even start? How do they get the
Look.
resources and the toolkits to go, I need micro habits, I need to
Mm.
set boundaries,
Oh,
I need to
look.
learn about my strengths.
That's a and the thing is now with that education and knowledge is not the problem. The problem is we have too much of everything to be able to find that in this current climate. And I know that most people will pick up their phone and get out their favorite little AI tool and go, hey, Claude, tell me about blah, 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 right? And Claude will do that. But is it what's right for you?
Definitely. I mean, we were talking about, the tools and how people can actually get a bit more courageous, right? Because you're absolutely right. If you think that you're in a burnout situation in workplaces, and you know what? very commonly, people are going through burnout in multiple workplaces. They feel
Yes.
like they are the hamster in a wheel and they cannot get out of it until at some point they realize, well, if all employers are going to be exactly the same, why don't I become my own employer? And that's when they start to need that courage, right? The tools, the reset. How do I even start? And you're absolutely right. If you're not doing an inward look at what is already on your table and take advantage of the resources that you already have, then why are we here?
Exactly. And as you're saying, that those situations, the triggers, what's happening in your current role right now, when you go and look at what's really going on, if you hold up the mirror, and it's going to come back to boundaries, as you mentioned before, right? If you're triggered by something in the workplace, rather than blame that other person, put on your curiosity hat and go, cool, put the mirror up. I'm literally holding my mirror up. Where is that showing up? And that's what inward work looks like, because unless it will just keep following you around. Like I was the yes girl. Yes, 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 yes. I would say yes to everything. And I have this saying which comes from, which I learned, which is unspoken expectation leads to unresolved resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And so when there's an expectation, but you haven't verbalized it, didn't even know that I had it. But that's what that is that unspoken expectation comes back as unresolved resentment. And that's where the trigger is. So what's triggering? What really is it? And rather than looking at it, oh, well, that person's X, Y, and Z, let's flip it around and go, cool, where would showing up like that anywhere?
How do I fit in? What is my part to play here when it comes to, the feeling that I'm feeling or the impact that is on me?
And, in my case, I'm in this nursing education role, and all I wanted to do was help and fix things and create a better space. And then I would have this boss shut me down. But she was shutting me down because that's not what I was employed to do. But I didn't and I think, oh God, she's such a insert whatever, right? But she wasn't. In hindsight, great lesson.
Yeah.
Do the role you're
Absolutely.
employed to do to the best of your ability and create somewhere else. That's what it was. And because I used to think, oh, maybe it's me. Is there something wrong with me? No, there's nothing wrong with me. I just wasn't using my strengths as I was employed to do.
I think first and foremost, people are not having enough honest conversations about burnout, which is the whole reason why I started doing this.
Yeah.
If you don't know the feeling that you're feeling, then it's very hard to actually start fixing the problem. And then you tend to take the blame and the guilt onto yourself. You weren't doing the wrong thing. You were just the wrong person in the wrong environment. Heck, I even say you probably took the wrong job. But we don't know that. And that's why I feel like part of the reason why people still get burnout in the workplace is cut the bullshit, right? They say you don't verbalize your thoughts, or, I have different expectations, but I'm too afraid of my boss. There's toxicity and there's narcissists. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yes.
Your gardener could be the most narcissistic person you will ever meet in your life. Right? It's not just your boss alone. But I think it's the reality of not truly giving yourself the opportunity to understand what burnout feels like. It's unique. It's a unique experience for every single person. But if you don't get the opportunity to look inward and kind of go, is this still right for me?
Yes.
Does this still serve me? It might serve me on Monday, but maybe on Friday it doesn't.
Yes. Agreed.
And
so
there's
true.
much work. There's so much work to do on yourself before you start pointing the finger at this is a workplace problem. And I think, honestly speaking, it also comes from this misperception because the WHO states that burnout is a workplace problem.
Yes, exactly.
That's not true.
No, it is not. It's a people problem.
Yes.
That's Bron's version of it, people. Just go and find your own version for it. But I'm not saying own it. What if it could be simply that, that you are in the wrong role for your strengths, for who you really are? Because when you're working with what you're really good at and who you are, you do better versus doing things. That's where I've started to heal from the burnout, because I have built a system around where I am at my best. And then
absolutely.
having a team that work with me. I have strengths training every year for the guys because we are forever wanting to up level. And it all starts with yourself. You know, the buck stopped with me. I'm the owner. It doesn't matter. Leaders lead themselves and then lead others.
Yeah. Before they lead others. Yeah.
That's
How
correct.
true is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always try to close with this question. If you were to only give one advice to someone who is in the thick of burnout right now, what would that be?
My advice would be, which I would say to anybody facing adversity in any shape and size, is be where your feet are. I want you to look down. I want you to look where your feet are, which means don't ruminate in the past. Forget about projecting into the future and the what ifs. You bring yourself back to right here and right now, and you literally breathe this. It's so simple. People don't believe me, but this is the truth. You breathe in for 4 and out for 6. We are literally wanting to wake up the vagus nerve from your brain to your gut. Wake it up. And then from there, do the next thing. And that's it.
Amazing. Cannot be more true. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Bron, for your incredible advice, but also your truth and your honesty. You know, sharing your truth and your honesty about what burnout means to people, how we can actually also get people burnout. So it's not just hey, I have a work schedule that's like got meetings on a back to back, and my day to day demands too much out of me. At the end of the day, what you're really saying is people could equally demand too much from you, and you go through a people burnout. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on and talk about your stories as well as your experiences. I am sure we are going to cross path again at some point in time. I know.
We will. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here and discuss this problem, which is just rampant.
Yeah, I know. And I am actually really looking forward to the book. But quick one before we end, how do people find you?
Look, I think the easiest way, look, Serenity Project is where I'm playing most of the time at the moment, which is people for living through cancer. So that's not your lane. Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Amazing. I will obviously also share all of your social handles when we release the episode.
Thank you. It's been great.
If this episode resonated with you today, make sure to follow and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a conversation as important as this. The Burnout Detox Kit is here to make sure ambitious people like you recover from the burnout without losing themselves in the process. So if you know someone navigating burnout right now, workplace toxicity, even simply trying to hold it all together, share this episode with them. You never know who might need to hear it. I thank you for your courage today, and thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next episode.